One engine. No runway. 90 seconds. 90 seconds.
A passenger pulled out his phone and started recording because he thought it was the last thing he would ever do. Everyone on that plane walked away.
But the reason they nearly didn't is a problem that has been killing people in Alaska for decades, and almost nobody outside the state has ever heard of it. The aircraft was a Cessna 208B Grand Caravan, single engine, operated by Wright Air Service. On the 22nd of June 2026, it took off from Coldfoot, Alaska, a settlement of about 10 people north of the Arctic Circle, bound for Anaktuvuk Pass. Watch what happened in the next 90 seconds. Because the thing that saved them is the same thing that has failed dozens of other flights in exactly this part of the world. Coldfoot sits in one of the most remote regions in North America. There are no highways connecting these villages. There is no rail, no road out. If you live in Anaktuvuk Pass, the only way in or out is a small aircraft like this one.
That single fact is the beginning of the doom.
Because when the only transport link to a community is a single-engine aircraft flying over Arctic wilderness, every flight is one mechanical failure away from disaster. There is nowhere to divert, no alternate airport, no emergency runway, just tundra, mountains, and freezing rivers in every direction. The Grand Caravan climbed out of Coldfoot. The passengers settled in. Routine flight. Under an hour. Then the engine lost power.
At altitude in a single-engine aircraft, engine failure is not like the movies. There is no time to think. The propeller windmills. The nose drops.
The aircraft becomes a glider, and a Grand Caravan glides like a brick.
The pilot declared an emergency. And then he did the only thing he could do. He started looking for a place to land in a landscape that offered none.
Here is the physics of what the pilot was facing. A Cessna 208 at cruise altitude has a glide ratio of roughly 2.5 miles forward for every 1,000 feet of height. From a few thousand feet over the Arctic, that gives the pilot a landing zone maybe 5 or 6 miles wide. In most of America, that is enough. There is a field, a road, a parking lot, something flat. In the Brooks Range of northern Alaska, there is nothing. No flat ground, no straight line long enough. Just ridges, boulders, and braided rivers.
And here is what makes it worse. The moment the engine fails, the clock is not just counting down to the ground, it is counting down to the wrong ground.
Every second, the pilot spends looking for a landing spot. The aircraft is losing altitude, which means the landing zone is shrinking.
The longer he searches, the fewer options he has. Hesitation is fatal. Commitment is survival. The pilot had seconds to pick the least deadly option and commit to it.
There is no second attempt in a glider. Whatever he chose, that was the landing.
Inside the cabin, a passenger named Brett Filippi pulled out his phone. The footage he captured shows the ground rushing up, the aircraft shaking, the impact.
The plane hit hard, skidded across rough terrain, and stopped. And then silence. Everyone on board survived. They climbed out of a wrecked aircraft in the Arctic wilderness, alive, because the pilot found the one survivable patch of ground in a landscape designed to kill. That is the part the news showed you. Here is the part they did not. This exact scenario, single-engine aircraft, engine failure, remote Alaska, nowhere to land, is not rare. It is one of the most consistent killers in American aviation. Alaska has a fatal aviation accident rate multiple times higher than the rest of the United States. Not because Alaskan pilots are worse.
Because the system forces them to fly routes that leave no margin for failure.
4 months before this crash, in February 2025, a Cessna 208 Grand Caravan, the same aircraft type, was flying over Norton Sound in western Alaska, Bering Air Flight 445.
10 people on board. It crashed into the sea ice. There were no survivors.
The passengers on that flight were not tourists.
They were healthcare workers from the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, people whose entire job was to bring medical care to villages that have no other way to reach a doctor. They died doing the thing the system requires, getting on a small plane because there is no other option.
Same aircraft, same state, same category of flight, 10 people dead, and it barely made national news. The difference between Bering Air 445 and the Coldfoot flight was not the aircraft. It was not the training. It was luck. One pilot
We're getting close to the
found
crevasse,
survivable ground.
maintaining course at 50
One
knots.
did not.
When survival comes down to luck, the system has already failed.
Here is what the investigations keep finding. Crash after crash. The FAA and NTSB are investigating the Coldfoot engine failure right now, but the pattern across decades of Alaska crashes is already clear. Single-engine aircraft are certified to fly these routes because certification rules were written for the lower 48, where an engine failure means gliding to one of thousands of airports. In Alaska, the same certification allows flights where an engine failure means gliding into a mountain.
The rules never accounted for the terrain.
Weather reporting in remote Alaska is thin. Many airstrips have no control tower, no instrument landing system, no weather station.
Pilots fly into conditions they cannot see coming.
And the economic pressure is relentless. These flights are lifelines. Mail, medicine, groceries, people.
When the only link to the outside world is a small plane, that plane flies in conditions that would ground aircraft anywhere else.
3 things could change this. None of them have been done at scale. 1. Require twin-engine aircraft for scheduled passenger flights over uninhabited terrain. If one engine fails, the second one flies you to safety. It costs more. It saves lives. The rule has never been mandated for these routes. 2. Build real weather infrastructure. Automated weather stations at every village airstrip. Real-time reporting. Pilots deserve to know what they are flying into before they commit. The funding has never been prioritized. 3. Fund ground transportation alternatives. As long as a single-engine aircraft is the only way to reach a community, people will die in single-engine aircraft. The infrastructure gap is the root cause. It has existed for a century.
The passengers on the Coldfoot flight walked away. The passengers on Bering Air 445 did not. The only variable was luck, and luck is not a safety system.
The FAA investigation into the Coldfoot crash will likely find engine failure as the cause. It will make recommendations, and the aircraft will keep flying the same routes, over the same terrain, with the same single engine, because there is no other way to reach these communities, and no political will to build one. Somewhere in Alaska tonight, a single-engine aircraft is flying over wilderness with no runway below it. The passengers trust the engine.
The engine is the only thing between them and the tundra. Most of them will land safely. Some of them will not.
And the difference will come down to the same thing it came down to over Coldfoot. Luck. One engine. No runway. 90 seconds. Everyone on that flight got to go home. The system that nearly killed them is still flying tonight. If this video opened your eyes, share it. One share puts this in front of someone who thinks the wilderness is the danger, when the real danger is the system that sends people into it with a single engine. Subscribe to Hidden Forces. Every video exists to show you the systems designed to hide from you. Hidden Forces. Every disaster has one. The next crash is already being built, one ignored warning at a time.